Lately, I'm getting a lot of questions on how to uncover and manage hidden costs in a bank. And the funny thing is, this question is a question that is not very industry specific because I used to get it for a lot of other industries as well. But there are some difference in how to address the answer to that question. The similar part of it is that I would always advise to try to model the cost that you have in your organization, in this situation, your bank. And what I mean by modeling is not as frightening as it might sound. And please believe me, I've studied econometrics, so I've seen some frightening modeling going around. But in this case, it isn't like that. Because the simple question we're trying to answer is how to get from your costs that are somewhere stored in your general ledger all the way down to your products. So say that you have, I don't know, 500 million of cost. How do those 500 million actually end up at your product level? Well, the first way of doing that, and that's almost back of an envelope calculation here, is trying to use a direct cost method where you would think of where are those costs being landing in my products. And here's where it differs a little bit from a manufacturing situation, because in a manufacturing situation, this could work reasonably well because you would have a lot of material cost that you can indeed attribute directly to a product. If you're making peanut butter jars filled with peanut butter, of course, then you could actually think of, okay, there's so much peanuts, there's so much oil, there's so much glass, and there's a plastic lid going up on that. And that also already captures a lot of your cost. Well, in a banking situation, I'll tell you, the plastic of the credit card itself is not going to be the most part of the cost of those credit cards. That's not what it's going to be. So, therefore, in a banking situation, you want to go a little bit more sophisticated. And an easy way to doing that is the so called activity based costing method. And that is where you try to actually get from a cost level in your general ledger to a resource level to activities, and then from activities to your products. Sounds very simple, and you can start out relatively simple. You can think of what kind of resources do I have, what are my most important activities, and what are my most important products. And you just try to get to the cost and allocate them out to those different levels. And it usually starts off with percentages. So much of my cost is spent on people, so much of my cost is spent on infrastructure, and that infrastructure is spent on these activities. And these activities are for those products. That's a very simplistic way to start out. But as you go further, you would try to make that a little bit more sophisticated. And making it more sophisticated means that you're not doing percentages, but you're doing actual numbering. These are the square meters that I use. This is the head count of a specific resource type. This is the time that I spent on a certain activity. And this is the activity count that I need for a specific product. So that's where you get the real numbers in there. And as you hear me saying time, you can already see things going on, as if you know time, then you would also know needed capacity. And if you know needed capacity, you can confront that with available capacity. And that's where you get more sophisticated, because all of a sudden you're managing your cost, not only uncovering them, but also managing your cost. Well, that's where some people start to call it time driven activity based costing, because that's where you have a time element in there, which is pretty cool. But even one level further down, if you have it all done and you have your product cost all available, then you could think of, if I have a credit card from customer with type 1 and customer type 2, and they can differ on demographics, they can differ on where they have actually applied for that credit card, whether it was in a branch or whether it was online, and in which different state it was. Those are all elements where you have the same product, but of course a lot of different activities go around these different clients. So the combination of product and client actually makes for different costs. So that's where you get multidimensional costing. Now, and all these kind of elements, if you have it all dialed in and dialed out, that's where you get to the profit line. Because if you also include revenue, you get to the profit, and that's how you get to a bottom line of a bank.